I never thought I'd be telling this story. Not to you. Not to anyone. Some things are meant to stay buried, like old photo albums stuffed in attic boxes. But guilt has a strange way of digging things up, making them impossible to ignore. This isn't a confession. It's not an excuse. It's just what happened. My name is Ethan. I'm 28, married, settled. And if someone had asked me a year ago, I would have said content. Safe. Maybe even happy. But the truth is, I've been lying to myself for a long time about my feelings, my choices, and most of all, about Ellie. Ellie and I are twins, technically. We were both adopted as newborns by the same couple, only days apart. We grew up calling each other brother and sister, wearing matching Halloween costumes, finishing each other's sentences. But we weren't bound by blood, only by circumstance. That distinction didn't matter when we were kids. It does now. Our connection was always intense. People noticed, even as early as high school. "You two act like you're dating," a teacher once joked when Ellie and I showed up late to class, soaked from the rain, laughing like no one else was in the room. I laughed it off. Ellie didn't. She looked at me sideways, like the comment had landed somewhere deeper. Lena, my wife, never liked how close we were. She never said it directly, but I could feel it. The way her smile would stiffen when Ellie texted me during dinner, or the questions she asked after I returned from spending time with her. "You talk to her a lot," she once said. "I just think it's a little much." I defended it. "Of course I did. She's my sister," I'd reply, knowing full well that word was beginning to feel like a costume. It fit, but only because I forced it to. The truth is, Ellie and I were never normal siblings. We shared something deeper, something difficult to name, an emotional language no one else understood. When we were kids, we'd sneak out to the roof and lie under the stars, talking about who we wanted to become. I wanted structure. She wanted freedom. I found comfort in schedules, while Ellie needed chaos to feel alive. I thought I was protecting her. I didn't realize I was building a tether neither of us could break. After college, our lives diverged. I got a job in finance, met Lena at a friend's engagement party, and within 2 years, we were married. Ellie, on the other hand, moved through cities like seasons, Portland, Chicago, then back to New York. She chased passion like it was oxygen, painting, dancing, dating people who never lasted. But no matter where she went, she always called. Every Sunday. Like clockwork. Last fall, something in her voice changed. There was a kind of exhaustion in her tone, like the fire she carried had dimmed. "I don't know who I am anymore," she said over the phone, her words brittle. "I feel like everyone I meet leaves with a piece of me, and I'm running out of pieces." I didn't know what to say, so I listened. A few weeks later, Ellie flew in for a weekend. She said she needed real time, with someone who didn't make her feel disposable. Lena agreed to dinner. The three of us sat in our living room, eating takeout and sipping red wine. Ellie looked radiant, messy hair, loose sweater, no makeup. She was her unfiltered self, which made her the most captivating person in the room. At one point, Lena excused herself to take a call. I looked at Ellie, and she looked at me, and there was something in that silence. Not lust, not yet, but a crack in the dam. Something unspoken rising to the surface. "You look tired," I said. She smiled, then reached across and touched my hand, just for a second. "You always notice." That night, after Lena went to bed, Ellie and I stayed up watching old home videos. We found one where we were 6, dancing in the living room, covered in flour from some failed baking attempt. I laughed, but Ellie went quiet. "I used to think we were all we'd ever need," she said softly. I didn't respond. She left the next morning. The hug lingered too long. When she stepped away, her eyes held something raw. "Take care of yourself," she said, but I felt the weight of what she really meant. "Don't forget me." The days that followed were harder than I expected. I found myself replaying our conversations, remembering her scent, the way her fingers trembled when she talked about feeling empty. I started looking forward to her texts with an eagerness I couldn't justify. I told myself it was concern, nothing more. Then came the night Lena and I fought. It wasn't a big fight, just one of those moments where too many little things piled up. She accused me of being distant. Said I was always somewhere else. Like your body's here, but your mind is with someone else. I wanted to deny it, but I didn't. Instead, I said something cruel. Maybe if you listen like she does, I wouldn't have to go somewhere else. Lena froze. Her silence hit harder than any scream would have. I slept on the couch that night, pretending not to see the hurt in her eyes. The next morning, I called Ellie. I need to get away, I told her. Can I come see you? There was a pause. Then, yes. That single word felt like a door unlocking. I told Lena I had a business trip. She didn't ask for details. Maybe she didn't want to know. As I packed my bag, my hands trembled. Part of me knew this wasn't about escaping stress or clearing my head. It was about Ellie.
It had always been about Ellie.
The drive to her apartment was quiet. Too quiet. I didn't play music. Didn't call anyone. Just let the silence stretch until it filled my lungs. When she opened the door, I knew everything was about to change. Hey, she said, like we'd seen each other yesterday. I stepped inside. Ellie's apartment hadn't changed much since the last time I visited. Same string lights hanging unevenly across the ceiling. Same chipped bookshelf stuffed with novels she swore she'd read one day. The windows were open, letting in the cool, early evening air. I stepped inside and dropped my bag quietly by the door, my heart thudding like a drum in my chest. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. You look tired, she said, echoing the words I'd spoken to her not long ago. Yeah, I muttered, unsure of what else to say.
Long drive.
We stood there in that silence for a moment too long. Then she turned away. I made pasta. It's probably overcooked. Come eat before it's inedible. Dinner was awkward in the way that only two people pretending not to be on the edge of something can be. We talked about work, about Lena, about the city. She laughed at all the right places. I nodded when I was supposed to. But underneath every word was something taut and trembling. After 2 glasses of wine, things loosened. Ellie leaned back in her chair, swirling the remaining liquid in her glass. I miss this, she said.
What? Us.
Being in the same room. Feeling like I'm not floating off into space. I looked at her then, really looked. There was something hollow behind her eyes, like a light flickering in an empty room. The kind of sadness that doesn't shout, but hums quietly in the background, always present. I never wanted you to feel alone, I said. She tilted her head, curious. Then why'd you leave me behind? The question landed like a punch to the ribs. I didn't. You did, Ethan. You built a life without me. Got married, got busy, got distracted. I became your Sunday call, your memory. And I let it happen. I opened my mouth to defend myself, but there was no point. She wasn't wrong. She stood up suddenly, moving to the window. Her silhouette against the city lights was a painting, beautiful and unreachable. Do you ever think about it? She asked without turning. Think about what? She hesitated, then whispered. Us. What we really are. The question cracked the air like lightning. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Because the truth was, I thought about it constantly. Those moments that never felt quite brotherly. Those glances that lingered too long. That unspoken intimacy that existed outside of any label we tried to wear. I shouldn't have come, I finally said. She turned, her eyes glassy. But you did. The rest of the evening unfolded, like a dream laced with tension. We moved to the couch. Music played, something soft and old, a melody that didn't demand attention. We sat inches apart, our arms almost touching. My heartbeat was loud in my ears. She reached over, brushing a strand of hair behind my ear. Her hand lingered. I've tried to stop feeling this, she whispered. I thought if I buried it deep enough, it would disappear. I swallowed hard. We're not supposed to. We're not anything, she interrupted, her voice tight. Not really siblings. Not by blood. Just 2 lost people who ended up in the same house. I looked at her, and the space between us felt unbearable. This isn't right, I said, though the words had no strength behind them. But it's real, she replied. Then she kissed me. It wasn't impulsive. It wasn't desperate. It was deliberate, slow, like she'd been rehearsing it in her mind for years. And when I didn't pull away, when I kissed her back, something inside me broke open. It was like breathing after being underwater too long. Wrong, dangerous, necessary. The world shrank to her warmth, her breath, the way her fingers trembled against my skin. There was no logic in that moment. Only feeling. Only need. Later, we lay tangled in silence, the weight of what we'd done hanging heavy in the air. She stared at the ceiling. I don't regret it, she said. I turned my head toward her. I do. That was the first lie. I didn't regret it. Not in the way I should have. I regretted the consequences, the confusion. But the act itself? It felt like something that had been waiting to happen. Like destiny had finally given up on subtlety. I know this doesn't change anything, she whispered. You're still married. We're still us. I didn't respond. What could I say? That I didn't know who I was anymore? That I felt like I'd stepped into someone else's life and didn't know how to get back. Eventually, we drifted into a restless sleep. In the early hours of morning, I woke up first. Her arm was draped over my chest, her breath soft against my neck. For a moment, I pretended we were just two people in love. No names, no history, just now. Then I slipped out of bed and got dressed without waking her. The drive home was a blur. My phone buzzed once, Lena probably wondering when I'd be back. I ignored it. When I walked through the front door, the house felt colder. Or maybe I was. Lena greeted me with a soft smile. You're back early. Didn't want to get caught in traffic, I lied. She wrapped her arms around me, pressing her cheek against my chest. I missed you. I held her, but I didn't say it back. That night, as we lay in bed, Lena fell asleep quickly. I stared at the ceiling, just like Ellie had. The guilt didn't hit all at once. It seeped in slowly, like smoke filling a room. My phone buzzed again. Ellie, don't hate me. I didn't plan this either. I stared at the screen for a long time before locking it and placing it face down on the nightstand. The silence between Lena and me felt louder than ever. I turned to face her, watching her sleep. I wondered what she'd say if she knew. If she'd scream.
Cry. Leave.
Or maybe she already knew. Maybe some things don't need to be said to be felt. All I knew for certain was that something had shifted. Irreversibly. And there was no going back. The days after that weekend were the quiet kind of hell. No fire, no fury, just a relentless stillness that made it hard to breathe. Every minute felt stretched thin, like skin pulled too tight over a wound. I was back home, back to Lena, but some part of me hadn't returned. It was still with Ellie, wrapped up in tangled sheets, in whispered apologies, in the gravity of everything we couldn't take back. Lena noticed, of course. She always noticed. You're not sleeping, she said one morning as we both got ready for work. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were searching. I've just got a lot on my mind, I said, avoiding her gaze. It wasn't a lie, but it wasn't the truth either. She reached for my hand. I don't want to pry, Ethan, but I know when something's wrong. If it's work or something else, I'd rather you tell me than let it eat us both alive. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. The words I needed. I cheated on you with Ellie stuck in my throat like glass. Nothing I can't handle, I muttered instead. She nodded slowly, and I hated how much she seemed to believe me. Or maybe she didn't. Maybe she was just too tired to fight for something that felt like it was already slipping away. At the office, I couldn't focus. My inbox was a blur of meetings and deadlines I couldn't bring myself to care about. I stared at spreadsheets, but all I could see was Ellie's face. The curve of her smile, the echo of her voice, the memory of her skin pressed against mine. Around lunchtime, my phone buzzed. Ellie, we need to talk. My fingers hovered over the screen. I wanted to respond. I didn't. Instead, I powered off the phone and shoved it in my drawer. But silence has a way of turning into pressure. It builds. And by the time I got home that night, it was unbearable. Lena was in the kitchen, chopping vegetables, her hair tied back the way she always wore it when she was thinking deeply or trying not to. The smell of garlic and rosemary filled the air, warm and domestic and painfully normal. Ellie called, she said without turning. My stomach dropped. I didn't answer, she continued. I just thought you'd want to know. I walked to the sink, turned on the water, and let it run longer than necessary. Why would she call you? I don't know, she said, too quickly. When I turned to look at her, I saw something new in her expression. Not anger, not sadness, resolve. She's your sister, she said, finally meeting my eyes. But I'm your wife, and I think I deserve to know what's going on. I wanted to lie. I wanted to protect her, protect myself. But more than that, I wanted to stop drowning in my own silence. So I told her. Not everything. Not the details. But enough. We crossed a line, I said. That weekend I was gone. I went to see her. And something happened. Something that never should have. Lena froze, the knife still in her hand. Then, slowly, she set it down. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just stood there. How long? She asked. Just once, I said. It wasn't planned. It just. She raised a hand. Stop. The silence that followed was worse than shouting. It was a kind of grief, raw and unspoken. I don't want to know why, she said. Because no reason will make this okay. I nodded. I understand. She left the kitchen without another word. That night, I slept in the guest room. The bed was stiff, the air colder. I stared at the ceiling and realized that nothing in my life felt like mine anymore. The next day, I called Ellie. She answered on the first ring. I thought you disappeared. I've been dealing with it, I said. A pause. Then, did you tell her? Yes. Another pause, longer this time. And she's done. I think. I expected Ellie to sound relieved. Or heartbroken. Instead, she was quiet. I didn't call to ruin you, she said. I needed to know if it meant something to you too. It did, I said. But that doesn't make it right. She let out a shaky breath. So, what now? Do we go back to pretending? Back to being siblings who never quite were? I don't know, I admitted. I don't think there's a back to go to. In the weeks that followed, everything began to unravel. Lena stopped speaking to me unless she had to. Meals were quiet. The distance between us became a chasm. I wanted to fix it.
I didn't know how.
One night, she left a note on the table. I'm going to stay with my sister for a while.
Please don't contact me.
I stared at those words until they blurred. Then I packed a bag and left the house I no longer recognized as home. I went to Ellie's. She opened the door and looked at me like she already knew why I was there. I'm not here because I want to be forgiven, I said. Or because I know what happens next. Then why? Because you're the only person who's ever really seen me. Ellie stepped aside, and I walked in. We didn't kiss. We didn't touch. We just sat in the quiet, letting the weight of everything we'd done settle between us. This doesn't fix anything, she said. I know. But it's real, she whispered. I nodded. And somehow that was enough for now.